My name is Rami Adib, and happy to be back here at TechWadi. And if there is one theme or one company that was mentioned throughout the day today, it was Souq.com. I was counting how many times it was mentioned, and I counted 7. Dave McClure talked about it as possibly the first unicorn in the region. Fadi Ghandour complained that it's sucking all the talent out of startups. But it's certainly an amazing success story, and I'm honored to be here today to present to you Mr. Ronaldo Mushawar, the founder and CEO of Souq.com. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Mushawar. Ronaldo, you founded Souq.com 10 years ago. Since then, it has grown to become the largest e-commerce site in the Middle East with over 30 million monthly visitors. You have raised hundreds of millions of dollars in undisclosed valuations. You've also launched the payment business PayFort, which has become one of the largest online payment businesses in the region. You are a native of Aleppo, and you were inspired to found Souq given the merchant heritage in the city. Tell us how it all started.
So, I think I'm an engineer, so, and somehow, as you said, I come from Aleppo. So Aleppo is a huge merchant base, and when we looked at the region initially, especially when it comes to commerce, we felt that there's a huge need to enable the smaller merchants to be able to get access to users through the internet, and kind of that's the founding story of Souq. So some of it's what I studied, some of it's where I come from. But if you look at retail overall in the region, it's quite dominated by larger groups, and we felt that the smaller guys through the internet could have a really good chance, and this is how the company started.
And the initial founding team, how did you guys know each other? Where did you all meet?
So, I wanted to build the platform, and then I met Samih and Hussam, who were the founder at Maktoub. At the time, they were heavily focused on building the portal business, and I wanted to build the commerce business. We had a small attempt to do the commerce business onto the portal. We had a platform called Mazad Maktoub and Shop at Maktoub, but there was a point where we felt that the type of customers and merchants that we needed to attract to the platform were not really 100% in sync with what the portal business was trying to be, which is more a media company, and that's kind of how we decided to separate it, and then I ended up acquiring the name Souq, and the story started there.
And the Maktoub founders, or the Maktoub team, has often been likened to the PayPal mafia here in the Valley. Can you tell us a little bit more about that ecosystem of early founders of Maktoub and how you all work together to start these other companies?
I can speak for myself. Samih and Hussam were definitely inspiration to me, and more as mentors than just as a success story. They've gone through a lot of the stages that every internet company would go through. And testimony to the team, we always liked entrepreneurs, and right after Maktoub was acquired by Yahoo, actually we almost founded 8 to 9 companies under what we called at the time the Jabbar Internet Group. Some of them have morphed into Souq since, some of them are still running on their own, and some of them didn't work out and we ended up closing them. But I think we have passion for Arab internet and consumer internet, and anything around that ecosystem excites us. And when we see young guys who want to work in the region, love the region, it gets us excited, and that's kind of how many of the ideas of the Jabbar Group started.
So tell us about the growth of Souq so far.
So I want to allude to a point. I came to TechWadi, I think I spoke about 4 years ago. We managed to attract 2 or 3 people from the TechWadi organization. They were some of the founding teams in technology that helped us really grow. And since 2012, we've been growing at an astonishing rate. And we had to go through a whole pivoting where we were initially an open marketplace, very similar to eBay. We looked at then the buying experience of the customer, and we looked at payment, logistics, content as key anchors that we needed to really solidify to grow the company, and we invested heavily in those. And that's when we have really seen the kind of the hockey stick growth that led really the growth of e-commerce in the region.
Now, when it comes to growth, a big part of it has been the growth of talent. You have over 2,000 employees today, over 1,000 of them working on logistics. How do you maintain that drive as you add more people to Souq?
I mean, as the company grows, I think for me, this in the last year, I would say is one of the biggest challenge to keep the team motivated. We create milestones internally. I give you an example. Last year, we wanted to do similar to the US, something called White Friday, which is similar to the Black Friday here. And really, we challenged every organization in our company that we wanted to do 10x during that day. And it was kind of fascinating for me to see my team and everyone around the team, just how focused we are on one goal and how kind of Souq looked almost 3, 4, 5x in that given period in terms of preparation, in terms of the infrastructure that we had, in terms of the technology that we needed to put in place to cater. And we stressed almost everything, the logistics network in the region, the payments, the banks, and it was really a successful day. So creating, I think, milestones to the team is critical, and not really believing in the status quo. I think being satisfied or a bit arrogant is really a bad culture in our, at least, team. The second aspect of it, and I think Fadi alluded to it, we have geographies in the region. So we try to leave the countries to be run by what we call the country managers or the entrepreneurs who run these markets. So that also kind of keeps the drive going, because every market has its own challenges. While we operate under the Souq umbrella and the Souq platform, which is unified, each market has quite a bit of different dynamics, especially when it comes to commerce and product. The third, as I said, we've looked at the ecosystem, and by building the payment company, the logistic company, those were actually managers or successful team members in the company, and we've managed to kind of spin off new opportunities for them. And I think this will continue to happen in Souq. It'll keep us more dynamic. When we were doing payment within Souq, it was not a great payment platform. When we created a payment company and let Omar, who was our country manager in Egypt, lead that payment business, suddenly it became one of the largest payment gateway in the region, because it focuses focus on the core problem, not only on the Souq problem, so it broadens the scope. Also, it kind of gives it its own flavor, its own DNA, and the type of people we attract who love payment and solving problem about payment. So it kind of changes the makeup of the team, and we feel this is exciting. The more we break these companies and create smaller entities that can dynamically function on their own, and they benefit from the Souq ecosystem, from a customer base, from volumes from day one, right? So they don't have to really go to market slowly. It has really worked for us, at least to keep the people motivated on the team.
Right, and you have a number of these companies, right? You have, in a way, Payfort, which is a payment, but you also have your own trucks, and you're fixing your own logistical delivery.
I mean, if you look at, and Fadi alluded to it, the region is all about geography, and we want it to be very super local. So we have fulfillment centers, stations, delivery. While we work with Aramex and others, we feel still logistic is a big barrier in terms of cost for e-commerce, and by using technology, a lot of the data that we've collected, we feel that cost can come down. We see it already happening, and the lower the logistic cost is in the region, and the more accurate it is, the more it will spur trust in terms of people, consumers buying, and it'll open up categories today that may not be possible because of the cost of shipping.
And as you create these additional businesses, do you ever worry that Souq would become the conglomerate that you actually started Souq to disrupt from the first place?
I mean, I always like to feel like we're a startup and very nimble. The numbers, 2,000, 3,000 employees, when actually sometimes we reflect back, our CFO goes, guys, we're not a startup. Look at the number of people we have. I think you have to stay nimble. I think that's the key. So if we can somehow divide the organization in a way that it stays nimble, it keeps it successful. I was never brought up to build a big company. I run now a big company. It is sometimes a strange feeling to me. And we all like to think that we're a startup. Sometimes, yes, we are not. And now when you mess up something, it costs millions because of the number of transactions that it can impact in a given day. So testing is not as fast and as dynamic as we want to be. But this is part of a whole learning to manage the team, learning to keep the team motivated. The number of merchants, keep the merchants on the platform. The merchants are growing themselves, so we see their problems are very different than when we started, and this kind of keeps us motivated.
So Ronnie, is Souq a unicorn?
I get asked that question a lot, and what I take pride in is two things, right? The type of talent and the number of jobs we've created in the region, for me, are more important than the valuations. And the type of, I think, skill that with the money that we have raised, we're able to develop in the region. So we have a great mobile team, an amazing data warehousing team, teams that are working on logistics and map and delivery and addressing and payment. I think those skill sets 5, 6 years ago, when we looked around the region, there were very few people who were really tackling and had the skill set to develop solutions at scale. And now I see around our team members and some of the managers and directors that we have, and I take more pride in that than what valuation we have reached. And creating jobs in the region, I think for me is a big deal. It really is a big deal, and I think we can only solve our problems. I know we have a lot of problems in the region. I only feel through some kind of education and as well as opportunity to implement and work in the region and not leave abroad. I mean, I left and I happened to come back to the region, but if I didn't, I think the region would have missed out, and I really want to stop that. And actually, we come here to take people backwards, right, back to the region versus the brain drain that's been happening for years in the region. Lebanon and Jordan and even Syria, I mean, great exporter of talent. The more we can keep it in the region, and if success stories such as Souq and others can keep that talent in the region, that I think for us is much more meaningful from what we do and why we go to work than the valuations that could actually distract the team. And that's why we refuse to go into it around the teams and around where we are and what value we've hit. Just focus on what we need to do. We have a lot of customers, hell of a lot of problems to solve. And technology is one way, people, management, all that. So that's kind of what keeps us going. And again, we try to shy away internally from focusing on what the valuations are or the share value is and so forth.
So just building on the team a little bit more, a lot of folks have argued that Souq today is sort of where Google was here in the Valley 15 years ago, where it's where all the best talent is, and that there comes a point where that talent then goes out and starts its own startups and then builds an ecosystem around it. But that hasn't really started happening yet. In fact, Fadi pointed out that you're still attracting all the best talent out of startups. How do you think that talent evolution? At what point do you feel that a lot of the folks that you have mentored will go on and become entrepreneurs in the region?
I mean, some of them do, and I think that's just a natural evolution. It will happen, and we're seeing it happening a bit more. If we're able to create exciting opportunities internally and keep them independent, maybe we can retain that talent versus losing them from a group perspective. But I think this is just natural. I mean, the type of problems and the type of stress and testing and the type of building that the team has experienced. Clearly, some people have ambition and they get ideas, and if the idea is not 100% in sync with what the group needs to do, then we will see some of that go outside. We still feel from here, at least from Silicon Valley, there's a lot of talent that we can attract back to the region, and that's kind of where we'll try to bring new talent. We have newer problems that today we are facing with scale that we didn't have. For example, White Friday ran on 10,000 servers, some of it on the cloud, some of it local. The warehouses had to work separately from the crowd, and those type of skill set to build that kind of architecture was not available in the region. If we can tap to people from here to bring back and get that kind of skill set into the team, I think that will infuse the whole region, because these guys will work with people, and these people will make work outside, and that's fine as long as we continue bringing decent talent to the region.
I'm looking for a job, so I'll write down for that.
Anyone who's, please email me, anyone who would want to know more about what we offer and the type of opportunities we have. I will not shy away from attracting talent back, even on this panel.
Now, you've mentioned White Friday. White Friday, to some extent, I assume it's somewhat related to Black Friday, yet you have taken that concept, adapted it to the region's needs, and fit the local markets. How do you strike that balance? How do you know when to get something from the West?
So, I mean, it was interesting because, I mean, White Friday had two components. One is running the platform at scale and to see, can we really do the 25, 30, $40 million like days, right? That's one area, and how the network overall would perform in terms of payment, logistic. But I think also for us, it was an opportunity to really engage the brand, to educate them that e-commerce in the region is now, it's not later. And a lot of the brands, and some of them are the big brands that in the West have engaged the big e-commerce sites and do sell online quite a bit. In our region, we're not really yet selling online or have not even considered online as a viable channel. And White Friday was an eye-opener for them because whatever we promised them in terms of what we were able to sell or move, actually moved and even more. And I think since then, we've seen all the brands now hire either e-commerce specialist or someone focused on the region. We're working with big FMCG companies, setting bigger targets than maybe, and share versus what even they see out here in the West. So I think it was really an eye-opener that e-commerce is now and it's not future, and the demand was there as long as, that there's a good balance between value and the type of product selection that you can offer. And I think that was the turning point. The concept initially clearly came from the West in terms of doing a Black Friday, but we had to do a lot in terms of how we customize it, make it work. One of them was the name. I mean, the team brainstormed a lot. What kind of a name should we come up with? The period, what country, how to run in Egypt versus Saudi, and so forth. Again, being on the ground in our part of the business is very critical.
What keeps you up at night?
So I think you alluded to it, right? We don't want to be the conglomerate, right? I still want to feel like I come to work and there's a problem I want to pick today and work on, and just that excitement has to kind of funnel down throughout the teams. And we've been at it for a while. You said, right, Souq has been around 10 years. So the first 3-4 years, we've experimented with many models, but the last 4 or 5 years has been really all through scale. And I see our teams, have worked extremely hard, meeting many challenges, nights, deadlines, no weekends. So just making sure we don't turn to a conglomerate probably is what I would not want to make Souq become. And if we can do that by keeping everyone excited, by introducing new things all the time, and keeping innovation as a key value within the company, that I think would be what would not keep me. I mean, I'll be happy.
What's your advice to entrepreneurs in the region?
So I think for me, having mentors, Fadi, Samih, Hussam, were very critical. Not to repeat maybe mistakes and kind of understand the markets that we operate in. So having mentors and reaching out to people is really, I think, one advice that every entrepreneur should take. A lot of us are willing to share a lot, and I think it's just when we see the genuine person is genuine about what he's trying to do, we are more willing to share. So I think that's one. And I think you have to, and we saw it kind of earlier in the presentation. At one point, you might have to pivot your business, and you should take those moves because kind of dying slowly is not really a solution. And we felt being an open marketplace in an environment where content wasn't there, logistic wasn't there, payment wasn't there, was not going to work. And we took really hardcore measures in terms of changing how the business ran. And at that point, we felt either the business would make it or totally would disappear, and we took those risks. So you kind of have to pivot when needed and understand the market. And I think the third one, you have to persevere. I mean, we've been at it 10 years. Maktoub also wasn't short. Fadi with Aramex, it's a lengthier path in our region because you have to do it in so many different markets. And you just have to, people will say no, commerce won't work, internet penetration, people will not pay online, all these negatives about what you're trying to do. You just got to, believe in what you're doing, keep your team motivated, raise money when you need to raise money, because also you have to make sure you have the right talent, because if you don't have the right talent, you're not going to get anywhere.
And we actually have time for 2 questions from the audience. Anybody has a question, just please raise your hand. Please go ahead.
So, I mean, for me, that's, I think, the most successful.
Actually, sorry, she made a comment that her cousin, it was not a question, it was a comment, that her cousin just moved back from here to Dubai to work product at Souq.
I think I know who you're talking about. I think it took me and Wissam probably 3 months of calling him and calling him and calling him and explaining to him what the region is. And, if I think it's the right person, for me, it's been a great addition for the team. And you'll see his output in the next, I think, 2 to 3 months. And when you see that output, I think you'll be proud, and we'll definitely be proud.
So we have time for one more question. Yes, please, go ahead.
You're from Syria?
Yeah, I'm from Aleppo. I think, I mean, you see it all over, right? We have a a huge disbursement of talent out of the country. Not many of it have come to the Gulf because of all the regulations in terms of getting employment and getting employment visas. So a lot of it may have gone to Jordan. But I think Syrians in nature are amazing entrepreneurs, and they will be successful no matter where they go. On the whole issue, thank you. For me today, I mean, we worry about everyone there, and we worry about everything there. So it's like really, you know, that topic is really tough for us personally. I moved to the region to be very close to Syria. That was one of the mandate that even if, you know, if I live somewhere around, I have to be within 1-2 hour flight to be able to celebrate holidays and you know, be with family. And, you know, not being able to go there for the last 4 years has been personally very tough.
I was speaking with Ronnie earlier, and he had just landed. He actually landed about 3 hours ago. And I asked him what he was doing for dinner, and he said actually he needs to catch the 4 p.m. flight out back to Dubai. He really came all the way here just to be with us. On behalf of Tequati, thank you.
Thank you.